thank you for taking the time to interview with me.
course.
Do you want to start off with your name?
Yeah, my name is Elie Jerjees. I'm a freshman here at Davidson, and I've lived in Charlotte for almost my whole life.
Perfect. So I guess my first question, just kicking it off, is
Yeah.
growing up. What was your experience with housing, and a little bit of background of yourself, and how's that shaped now?
Yeah. Um, I was born in Iraq. Me and my family lived there until 2009, and we moved to America due to the war. We moved as refugees, and we lived in subsidized housing for about the first 2 or 3 years of living in America. And then we moved into a townhouse together for maybe 2, 3 more years before my parents bought our first house, and we've lived in that house ever since. So I've lived here for about 16 years. And yeah, so that's my housing story in Charlotte. But yeah, it's been all over Charlotte. Never left the city.
Okay. And then when we talk about at least the economic side of it, going from townhouse to the house currently, have you seen like your neighborhood change, or do you think that in Charlotte it's sectioned off by class, or what's the sort of division with that?
Yeah, it definitely is sectioned off by class. It's more so about like wealth inequality, I think, in Charlotte. Less so about like race divisions, because I know that's an issue in other cities. But the first housing we had, like the apartments, it was honestly like it was a lot of other refugees from Iraq, from Afghanistan, and we lived with like a bunch of people. We made a lot of friends there because it's similar situations.
Yeah.
But we all lived in like one apartment complex together, and it was all subsidized, and it was like a housing for that. And then we moved over to townhouses, which were like bigger than the apartments, but it was still like cheaper housing. And then it was like still like lower class people like that we lived with, and like inherently, of course, like wealth inequality has something to do with race inequality as well. So in the apartments, it was mostly like refugees and like immigrants and people who had like just moved in, while the townhouses were like more poor people and very few white people. And then in the housing, like the house that we have now, I would say it's like a pretty decently white area. I mean, of course, it's not like a super rich house or area of Charlotte, so you have like just as many different races, but still, like, having a house and having a neighborhood, there's more white people, a lot more white people than there would have been in townhouses and apartments. And then the question about sectioning. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of areas in Charlotte where like they're known to be the expensive areas. Like the first one that comes to mind is Ballantyne, which is like it's maybe like in the middle of Charlotte, a bit south of Charlotte, and that has always been like the rich area of Charlotte where all like the wealthy people live, and those houses are probably more than $1 million each. And then there's other areas like Pineville. It's like a little bit less expensive, but still like one of the nicer areas. And even like the first apartment we had was in an area called South Boulevard, which now has become like very gentrified, and it's like one of the most like expensive areas in Charlotte. But like back when I lived there, it was very poor, and there wasn't really much there.
Right.
Now they call it South End, which is like a nickname for being. I'm pretty sure like the nickname is like because it's high end, and that's what I was told at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that area is very expensive. I have like my mom knows people that live there who their houses are almost $1 million each. When we used to live there, just in an apartment complex.
That's crazy. Yeah, gentrification is definitely a huge thing that I've heard, common factor, and I know it's beginning to rain out here, so I want to be mindful of your time. But
No problem.
one more thing is, at least in our research ethics class, something that we're taught is to look at things in a 360 lens. So in my research, I found that often housing still has those deeds, and often those deeds that say that that this place is only for a white person, and that that language is still on there even though it's not enforced. And I just found that super interesting that those titles still exist, and I was wondering if you had a story or knew someone
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of properties that are like that. You know, people don't really talk about it as much, so like you wouldn't know which houses are what. But we do have, like, my family has these family friends who like recently moved into a house, and like the lady that moved in with her family, she's Indian and she's Muslim, and she moved in and she read her deed, and the deed says like this property can only be purchased by a white man.
Wow.
And so like when she had her house welcoming party, like she framed up the deed just as like kind of like a, you know,
Yeah.
like to show like she bought the house, although
Wow.
it's like, you know, it was never supposed to be for her.
Right.
So, you know, those stuff still exist. I mean, of course, like they're ignored. It's not really like a legal contract at this point. I mean, I don't know the logistics behind it, but like
Yeah.
people don't follow it anymore. But it's still crazy that things like that still exist, and it's still on deeds, and people are buying these houses like with that, like in the history of the house.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, thank you so much for
Yeah,
your
of course.
time, and yeah, just try to get in. You know, start beginning to rain out here, but yeah, thank you for this interview.
Yep.
I appreciate it.